Hamilton, Franklin, Montgomery, and 15 other Ohio counties are under quarantine for an invasive species that is threatening vineyards, orchards, and people's gardens.
They're already here, and the damage is happening right now.
It's only a part of the puzzle of invasive species in the Columbia River. Just one in a long laundry list of invasive species that have been brought to the system by human activities.
From bright-looking insects to weird pink egg clusters and even calm-looking water, these invasive species are quietly tearing ecosystems apart.
We're talking about the emerald ash borer. It's an invasive beetle that can actually destroy trees pretty quickly.
They've wiped out hundreds of millions of trees and caused over $300 million in damage every year in the Northeast alone. These are the 10 most dangerous invasive species on the United States government's Red Alert list. How many do you actually recognize? Join us, let us break it down together. Number 10. Asian clams. Asian clams first appeared in the Columbia River in the 1930s, most likely hidden inside seafood shipments from China and Southeast Asia. Back then, they were small, just a few centimeters across, easy to overlook. But that tiny size became their biggest advantage. Over the decades, they spread quietly and now infest 38 states, becoming one of the most costly and destructive freshwater invaders in the United States. Their real strength comes from reproduction. Asian clams do not need a mate. A single clam can release hundreds of offspring in a single season, so a few overlooked shells can turn into millions in just months. Once they settle, they attach tightly to water intake pipes, power plant cooling systems, irrigation channels, and city treatment facilities, forming thick layers that slow or block water flow, strain pumps, and damage infrastructure. In 2011, a hydroelectric station in Nevada experienced the full impact. Within 6 months, Asian clams completely covered the intake pipes, forcing an emergency shutdown. Electricity production dropped sharply, repairs took weeks, and maintenance costs surpassed $400,000, all ultimately paid by customers. In California's Delta region, water agencies now spend between $1 and $3 million every year scraping clams from pipes and applying chemical treatments just to keep systems running. Similar crises appear across multiple states, creating an ongoing economic strain. The problem extends beyond machinery. Asian clams filter water constantly, removing plankton and tiny organisms that native fish and aquatic insects depend on. Surveys in Clear Lake, California in 2008 found densities reaching 2,000 clams per square meter, levels that fundamentally altered the food web. Native freshwater mussels, already under pressure from pollution and habitat loss, are now at greater risk of extinction as they lose both space and resources to these invaders. The threat grows worse as Asian clams adapt. Studies now show they tolerate higher salinity, allowing them to invade estuaries and coastal zones once considered safe. Warmer winters have helped them survive in Wisconsin and Minnesota, areas previously too cold. Boats remain the main carriers. Water trapped in motors, bait buckets, and fishing gear can contain dozens of microscopic larvae in a single spoonful. By the time monitoring systems detect populations, removal is nearly impossible. Each contaminated boat can introduce clams to a new lake, restarting the cycle and ensuring this silent invasion spreads steadily, unchecked, reshaping waterways and ecosystems across the country. Number 9. Emerald ash borer. The emerald ash borer entered Michigan in 2002, tucked inside wooden shipping crates arriving from East Asia. No one noticed at first. The beetle was small, shiny green, barely bigger than a penny, and easy to overlook. But once it found ash trees, it spread fast and without resistance. Since then, it has killed more than 100 million ash trees across 18 states and 5 provinces in Canada, changing forests, neighborhoods, and city streets in the process. Adult beetles lay their eggs in the rough bark of ash trees. When the larvae hatch, they burrow straight into the cambium layer, the living tissue that moves water and nutrients through the tree. They chew through this system slowly and quietly, cutting off the tree's lifeline from the inside while the outside still looks fine. There is no early warning. By the time leaves start turning yellow and the top of the tree begins to thin out, the damage is already extreme. The small D-shaped holes left behind show the beetles have moved on, and the tree is already dying. Researchers at Ohio State University tracked infestations and found that untreated ash trees usually die within 2 to 4 years after the beetles arrive. Some trees that look healthy in spring are almost completely hollowed out by summer. By the next year, they are dead. No other invasive forest insect in North America kills trees this fast. The financial cost has been massive. Total losses now exceed $10 billion when timber value, tree removal, and property damage are added together. In Toledo, Ohio, the city spent more than $1.8 million removing 20,000 dead ash trees between 2007 and 2012. Homeowners often pay between $500 and $2,000 per tree, and many yards have several ash trees planted decades ago. Dead trees also fall without warning, crushing cars, roofs, and power lines. Ecologically, the loss runs deep. Ash trees make up as % of forests in parts of the Northeast, stabilizing soil, shading streams, and supporting wildlife. Several moths and native insects rely only on ash trees, and are now disappearing with them. With no natural predators here, control depends on chemical trunk injections, strict firewood quarantines, and the release of 4 parasitic wasp species from Asia. These tools slow the spread but do not stop it. Even under ideal conditions, recovery is expected to take more than 50 years while the beetle keeps moving tree by tree, forest by forest. Number 8. Bedbugs. Bedbugs almost disappeared from America by the 1960s after heavy use of DDT wiped them out across homes and hotels. That calm did not last. In the early 2000s, they returned, carried across borders in suitcases and backpacks, stronger and harder to kill because they had adapted to common pesticides. Today, 1 in 5 Americans has dealt with bedbugs personally or knows someone who has, and their spread shows no sign of slowing. These insects are built for hiding. They squeeze into mattress seams, cracks in bed frames, behind wallpaper, inside couches, and even into electrical outlets. During the day, they stay out of sight. At night, they come out, guided by body heat and the carbon dioxide people release while breathing. They feed quietly on sleeping humans, then slip back into hiding before morning. Bedbug bites do not spread disease, but they cause intense itching that can last for days. Over time, repeated bites often trigger stronger allergic reactions, with large swollen welts that sometimes need medical care. The more serious damage is mental. Studies show people living with infestations develop anxiety, constant alertness, trouble sleeping, and symptoms linked to post-traumatic stress. Knowing something feeds on you every night makes rest feel unsafe, and that stress can linger long after the bugs are gone. In large cities, therapists now regularly treat patients dealing with bedbug-related trauma. The financial toll is heavy. A national survey in 2018 found bedbugs cost more than $500 million every year across hotels, apartments, and private homes. Most households spend between $1,000 and $5,000 on extermination. Bedbugs can survive up to 400 days without feeding, and many populations resist pyrethroid insecticides once the main line of defense. In New York City, testing shows resistance to several pesticide groups, forcing pest control teams to rely on integrated pest management. This includes heat treatments that raise rooms to 120 degrees Fahrenheit for hours, combined with vacuuming, mattress encasements, and precise chemical use. They spread easily through luggage, clothing, and second-hand furniture. One pregnant female hiding in a suitcase can start a full infestation in 3 months. Apartment buildings are especially vulnerable because bedbugs move through walls and shared spaces, often requiring building-wide treatment that costs tens of thousands. In 2018, a woman in Philadelphia was awarded $1.6 million after a landlord failed to address a severe infestation that caused documented mental harm. Avoiding bedbugs now demands constant attention because a single slip can turn everyday life into months of disruption. Number 7. Cane toads. Cane toads come from Central and South America, but they were introduced to Florida and Hawaii in the middle of the 20th century to control insects on sugarcane and banana farms. The plan failed almost immediately. The toads escaped, adapted, and multiplied rapidly. And today Florida alone holds wild populations estimated at more than 200 million. Their real danger hides behind the eyes, where large parotid glands release bufatoxin when the toad feels threatened. This poison attacks the heart and nervous system, capable of killing dogs, cats, and native wildlife within minutes, making them a serious threat to pets and ecosystems alike. Veterinary clinics across Florida treat hundreds of poisoning cases every year linked directly to cane toads. Dogs that lick or bite one can collapse within moments, showing heavy drooling, seizures, and irregular heartbeats. Without immediate care such as intravenous fluids, heart monitoring, and intensive veterinary treatment, many do not survive. Costs range from $500 to $3,000 per treatment, and survival drops sharply if help does not arrive within 30 minutes. Cats that hunt toads face the same lethal risk. Native predators like snakes, raccoons, possums, and birds also die after attempting to eat them, which creates holes in local food chains and alters the balance of ecosystems. Cane toads are opportunistic feeders, eating nearly anything that fits in their mouths, from insects and spiders to small reptiles and young birds. They outcompete native frogs for food and breeding space, causing local populations to decline by 75 to 90% in areas they dominate. At night, streetlights attract insects, and dozens of toads gather underneath to feed, creating dense feeding hotspots. During breeding season, their loud rattling calls can reach 90 decibels, echoing through neighborhoods for hours. Dead toads frequently end up on roads and lawns, creating constant cleanup challenges for residents. Currently, cane toads are firmly established across central and southern Florida, with smaller populations in Texas and Louisiana. Climate models from the University of Florida predict that warmer winters could allow them to spread farther north. If average temperatures increase by 2 to 3 degrees Celsius over the next 20 years, parts of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and the coastal Carolinas could become suitable habitat. Some communities organize night patrols to remove toads. But with females laying up to 30,000 eggs each year, populations continue to expand relentlessly, moving yard by yard, street by street, reshaping neighborhoods and threatening pets, wildlife, and local ecosystems across the region. Number 6. Apple snails. Apple snails began their takeover in the late 1970s, starting in rivers across South America before being shipped to Taiwan as a cheap food source. People refused to eat them, and farmers released them into nearby waterways. From there, the snails spread fast through fish farms, rice fields, and the aquarium trade, eventually reaching Hawaii and then the mainland United States. Today, they are firmly established in Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Arizona, and California, thriving in warm wetlands, irrigation canals, and flooded farmland. Their success comes down to reproduction. One female apple snail can lay thousands of eggs every week. She places them in bright pink clusters above the waterline on plants, fence posts, concrete walls, and pipes. Each cluster holds between 200 and 600 eggs and hatches in about 2 weeks when temperatures stay warm. The shocking pink color is not a decoration. The eggs contain neurotoxins that make them poisonous to birds, fish, and mammals, so almost nothing eats them. That protection allows nearly every egg to survive, leading to sudden population explosions. In Louisiana, crawfish farmers are paying the price. Apple snails eat the aquatic plants that crawfish depend on, stripping ponds bare and competing directly for food. Industry losses now reach between $15 and $20 million every year. Individual farmers report losing entire seasons' worth of $50,000 to $100,000. Draining ponds to interrupt the snail life cycle takes weeks, destroys production schedules, and costs thousands more in labor. Sorting snails out of crawfish traps pushes labor costs up by 30 to 50%, and many long-running family farms have shut down or walked away entirely. Rice farmers face the same disaster. In California and Texas, Young rice plants planted into flooded fields can be eaten down to the mud in days. Fields prepared for months turn useless almost overnight. Yield losses range from 40 to 80% in badly infested areas, forcing farmers to question whether rice is even worth planting anymore. The threat goes beyond crops. Apple snails carry rat lungworm, a parasite that causes meningitis in humans. Hawaii confirmed 82 cases between 2007 and 2022, linked to raw vegetables contaminated with tiny larvae. Victims suffered long-term nerve pain, vision loss, and thinking problems that lasted for years. Health officials now warn never to touch pink egg clusters with bare hands, to wash produce thoroughly, and never to release aquarium snails, because once apple snails take hold, removing them is almost impossible. Number 5. Zebra mussels. The Great Lakes often look bright and clear, and visitors take that as proof that the water is healthy. That clarity is a warning sign. Zebra mussels have stripped the lakes of life, leaving water that looks clean but feels empty. These mussels came from the Caspian Sea and Black Sea region and arrived in the late 1980s when cargo ships released ballast water into the Great Lakes. What followed was a slow disaster that never stopped spreading and has now reached more than 30 states. Zebra mussels are small, about the size of a fingernail, but they cling to almost anything using tough byssal threads that work like natural glue. They cover boat hulls, docks, water pipes, rocks, and even native mussels, stacking on top of each other until surfaces disappear. One female can release up to 1 million eggs in a single spawning season. The larvae drift freely with currents, then settle and attach. Within 3 to 5 years, a lake can go from clean to completely infested. The cost hit fast. From 1989 to 2004, water utilities around the Great Lakes spent more than $260 million clearing clogged intake pipes and replacing damaged systems. Today, nationwide damage passes $1 billion every year. Power plants, factories, marinas, and homeowners all pay the price, scraping hulls and clearing pipes year after year while the mussels keep spreading. Each zebra mussel filters about 1 liter of water every day. With billions doing this non-stop, they remove plankton that small fish depend on. Fish like alewives and yellow perch lose their food, and numbers crash. Larger fish follow. Fishing businesses in Michigan and Wisconsin report losses between 30% and 50% in heavily infested waters, even though the lakes look perfect from the surface. That extra clarity lets sunlight reach deeper, feeding thick mats of cladophora algae. When the algae die and wash ashore, they rot and release hydrogen sulfide and ammonia. Beaches stink for weeks, property values drop, and sharp shells pile up along shorelines, cutting bare feet. To slow the spread, Wisconsin and Michigan now use trained dogs to sniff out zebra mussels on boats and enforce mandatory boat washing. Because once these mussels settle in, removing them is almost impossible. Number 4. Spotted lanternfly. The spotted lanternfly comes from China, but it showed up in Pennsylvania in 2014 after hitching a ride on imported slate stone used in landscaping. No one noticed at first because its egg masses look like dried mud stuck to flat surfaces. Within 10 years, the insect spread across 14 states and now causes more than $324 million in farm losses every year in the Northeast alone. What makes this insect so hard to stop is how it travels. The lanternfly lays egg masses on almost anything smooth, including shipping containers, rail cars, trucks, firewood, outdoor furniture, stone pallets, and even the undersides of cars. Each egg mass holds between 30 and 50 eggs sealed under a waxy coating that protects them through winter and hides them during inspections. One missed patch can start a new outbreak hundreds of miles away. Once the insects hatch, the damage begins fast. Spotted lanternflies pierce tree bark and vines to suck out phloem sap, the sugar-rich fluid plants use to move energy. As they feed, they release excess sugar as sticky honeydew that rains down on leaves, fruit, and soil. Black sooty mold grows on this coating and blocks sunlight, shutting down photosynthesis. Vineyards that look healthy in spring can turn into rows of wilted vines with shriveled grapes and dark-stained trunks by harvest season. Pennsylvania grape growers report losses between 80 and 90% in badly hit vineyards, with single farms losing between $200,000 and $500,000 in one season. Apple orchards face the same problem as fruit becomes sticky, moldy, and unsellable. New Jersey alone recorded $290 million in agricultural losses in 2020. The wine industry in Pennsylvania, valued at $1.8 billion a year, remains under constant threat. California worries experts the most. Its agriculture sector is worth more than $57 billion and supports global supplies of wine, almonds, walnuts, citrus, and stone fruit. If lanternflies take hold there, economists estimate losses could pass $5 billion each year. The state runs heavy monitoring at ports and highways, but the insect keeps spreading because every moving vehicle is a possible carrier. In affected towns, lanternflies swarm porches, trees, and cars through summer and fall. Honeydew ferments in the heat, filling neighborhoods with a sickly, sweet smell. Farm visits, orchards, and vineyard tours see fewer visitors. States set quarantine rules and push kill-on-sight campaigns, but with few natural predators here, the lanternfly keeps moving forward. Number 3. Besalv fungus. In 2013, scientists in the Netherlands identified a deadly fungus called Batrachochytrium salamandrivorans, known simply as Besalv. Translated directly, the name means salamander eater, and that description fits too well. Wherever this fungus appears, salamander populations collapse fast, with death rates reaching 96% in affected groups across Europe. Besalv attacks the skin, which for salamanders is not just protection, but survival. Their skin controls breathing, water balance, and essential salts. When the fungus infects them, it strips away the outer skin layers and opens deep sores across the body. As the damage spreads, salamanders can no longer absorb oxygen or hold moisture. They slowly suffocate and dehydrate, often dying within 2 to 4 weeks. There is no cure. Antifungal treatments only show limited success in lab settings and cannot be applied in rivers, forests, or mountain streams. The fungus releases tough spores that stay alive in soil and water for long periods, waiting for another host. Studies show Besalv can survive in water for at least 3 weeks and in damp soil for 7 weeks. Once it enters an ecosystem, removing it becomes nearly impossible. North America faces the greatest risk. This continent holds the highest salamander diversity on Earth, with more than 190 species. Many live in the Appalachian Mountains, where isolated valleys allowed unique species to evolve over millions of years. Some exist only in a single stream system stretching a few miles. If Besalv reaches these areas, entire species could vanish within 10 years. Once lost, they are gone forever. Salamanders play a quiet but massive role in ecosystems. One salamander can eat hundreds of thousands of insects in a year, including mosquito larvae. Without them, insect numbers rise sharply. Forest floors change as decomposition speeds shift, nutrients move differently through soil, and plant growth patterns alter. In some forests, salamanders process more organic matter per acre than small mammals, making them keystone species that hold systems together. The main danger comes from the global pet trade. The United States imports thousands of salamanders each year from Asia and Europe, where Besalv already exists. A single animal can carry the fungus without showing symptoms. If released or escaped, it could introduce Besalv into wild populations. To slow this threat, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service took emergency action in January 2016, banning the import of 201 salamander species. It remains one of the strongest preventive wildlife trade actions in the country's history. Scientists now monitor streams and forests across the USA, testing water and animals for traces of Besalv. Early detection is the only real defense, because once the fungus spreads freely, there is no way to bring these salamanders back. Number 2. Asian carp. Asian carp, including bighead, silver, black, and grass carp, were brought from China during the 1970s to help fish farms and wastewater ponds. They were meant to eat excess algae and clean water naturally. For years they stayed contained. but floods in the 1990s breached ponds in Arkansas and Mississippi. Carp escaped into rivers and spread rapidly upstream through the Mississippi River system, reaching the Missouri, Illinois, Ohio, and Tennessee rivers. Their slow creep toward the Great Lakes has triggered a multi-hundred-million-dollar battle to keep them out. Silver and bighead carp eat constantly, consuming up to 40% of their body weight each day. A 50-pound silver carp can eat 20 pounds of plankton daily, leaving almost nothing for native fish. In some parts of the Illinois River, Asian carp now make up 60 to 90% of all fish biomass. Paddlefish, once common, have declined by more than 70% in heavily invaded areas. Silver carp are notorious jumpers. Startled by boat motors, they can launch themselves up to 3 meters out of the water. Weighing 20 to 30 kilograms, these fish become flying hazards. Injuries from collisions are severe and well documented. On the Illinois River, one woman broke her jaw when hit in the face, needing reconstructive surgery. A teenager fractured vertebrae in his back after a silver carp struck him, causing permanent spinal damage. Boating, water skiing, and tubing in these rivers have become genuinely dangerous. Tournament fishing events have been canceled multiple times, costing local economies hundreds of thousands in lost tourism revenue. The Great Lakes support sport and commercial fisheries worth $7 billion each year, providing thousands of jobs across Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. If Asian carp breach current barriers, these industries could collapse. Since 2010, federal and state agencies have spent over $607 million on electric barriers in the Chicago area waterway system. These barriers deliver painful, non-lethal shocks to deter carp, but require constant upkeep and are not foolproof. Control strategies include commercial fishing, removing over 5 million pounds of carp annually, environmental DNA monitoring, and experimental rotenone poison treatments in isolated waterways. Some areas promote eating carp, rebranded as Kopi to reduce numbers. Despite these efforts, populations remain high, and Asian carp DNA was detected within 6 miles of Lake Michigan in 2022, raising fears that the barriers could fail and the invasion might reach the Great Lakes. Number 1. Feral hogs. Feral hogs show what happens when a land invader runs unchecked, breeding fast and destroying everything in its path. Populations exceed 6 million across at least 35 states and grow into new territories every year. They cause an estimated $2.5 billion in agricultural damage annually, and that number keeps climbing as control efforts fail to keep pace. The invasion started centuries ago, not by accident. European settlers brought domestic pigs to America in the 1500s to provide food. Many escaped or were released intentionally to create wild populations for hunting. In the 1900s, wealthy landowners imported Eurasian wild boar for sport, releasing them onto game preserves. These wild boar interbred with feral domestic pigs, creating hybrids that combined intelligence, aggression, survival instincts, and rapid reproduction. Female feral hogs can breed at 6 months old, producing 2 litters per year, each with 4 to 12 piglets. Within just 2 years, one female and her offspring can theoretically produce dozens of descendants. With few predators large enough to kill adult hogs, which weigh between 200 and 400 pounds, populations explode. In Texas alone, the population exceeds 2,600,000, growing about 20% yearly despite hunting and trapping. Experts say even killing 70% of all hogs annually would not stop population growth. Feral hogs eat everything: crops, roots, insects, reptiles, eggs, newborn livestock, carrion, and even newborn deer. Their rooting destroys fields, tearing through soil with snouts and tusks, leaving the land looking plowed by machines. Corn, soybeans, wheat, rice, peanuts, and vegetables are uprooted and trampled. Farmers in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana lose tens of thousands of dollars per field. Ranchers lose calves, pasture, and fencing. The $2.5 billion estimate doesn't fully account for lost productivity or farmers abandoning land. Hogs devastate ecosystems, uprooting plants, eroding soil, damaging wetlands, and killing birds, turtles, snakes, and salamanders. They carry 35 diseases transmissible to humans, livestock, and wildlife, including pseudorabies, brucellosis, tuberculosis, salmonella, and E. coli. They run 30 miles per hour, and adults have sharp tusks capable of severe injuries. Attacks on hunters, hikers, and residents are increasingly common. Control is difficult. Hunting, trapping, fencing, and helicopter gunners slow populations, but cannot stop them. Climate change aids expansion, with warmer winters increasing survival and milder temperatures extending their range northward into Michigan, Pennsylvania, and New York. Hogs migrate freely, ignoring state borders, while human management remains fragmented. Each year, feral hogs spread further, destroy more land, and cost more money, showing an invasion that cannot be fully stopped, only slightly slowed. Thanks for watching. Please click the cards on the screen now for more interesting videos.